You're watching the Norfolk Southern Sherwood subdivision. I'm Harold. Thanks for watching. Today we are going to see some progress on our construction of the back scene in our town of Sherwood. You have seen this before in some of our operations videos that we've done recently because we put it in place temporarily. The whole thing looks like this. It's pretty long. See, it goes clear down there. And likewise on the other end. It's probably over 6 feet long. And it's intended to represent a structure that you might find in a town where the railroad is in the front, here, and the town's buildings are built on a small hill, which is what this represents. The structures are a bunch of DPM kits glued together, those. This is Merchants Row 1 from Walthers and Merchants Row 5 from Walthers. You can see other videos about how we built the buildings. Additionally, there are videos on our channel about how we constructed the wall itself. Fundamentally, it's 2 pieces of MDF. It has glued on the front a stone facade made by Plastrup, and the top is a bunch of old no parking signs. Thanks, Vinny from BNSF 6951 for telling us about that trick. It's all been painted, but we need to do some more work on it. The roadway here and the stone here are Model Master medium gray. The attempt to represent aged concrete is actually Mission Model's light neutral tan. Likewise, the concrete sidewalks, also Mission Model's light neutral tan. Let's take a closer look at the stone wall itself, because this is going to be the focus of our next activity. You'll see there's a representation of stone, and you can see the lines between the stone, but they're not very prominent, so this looks pretty flat. And as a result, it doesn't look very realistic. Consequently, our next step is going to be to improve the appearance of the stone by adding mortar. And the way we will do that, we will remove all the structures, of course. We'll take this entire thing outside, and we will clear coat it with dull coat. That will have the effect of protecting the paint that's already on here. We will come back in with a very thin wash of probably much lighter gray, and we will use that to highlight the mortar joints. We have returned to our stone wall. Since you've last seen it, it's been outside receiving 2 coats of Tester's dull coat. So it has now this appearance, which is essentially the way it looked before, except the paint now has some protection. So we will proceed to apply the simulated mortar. Our simulated mortar is Model Master flat gold gray, 1 part of that, 3 parts of water, and some dishwashing detergent to encourage flow. And what we're using is the sharpest pointed brush we could find, this one here. And the technique is going to be to apply small dabs of paint in the crevices between these simulated rocks and let it flow. So we have paint on the brush. We try to get it in the cracks between. Now what it should do is just to flow down the cracks without sitting on top of the rocks. And if you get a situation like that, where actually I had too much paint on the brush, just dab it off with a clean cloth and keep going. You can see how with the right mixture of paint and the right amount of dishwashing detergent. It'll just flow into the cracks and will not sit on top of the simulated rocks. This is what we want. You can also see this is a very tedious process, and you have to be patient, and you have to take your time, because if you rush this, you're going to make a mess. And then you're going to have to clean up the mess and do it all over again. So we just continue doing this until we're all done. And done means we've done all parts of this stone wall. We could keep doing this all day on camera, and I'm sure we will be doing this all day off camera. But there's no point in you seeing the rest of it. We'll show it to you when it's done, and you can make a judgment about how you feel about it. Continuing to work on the mortar joints in our stone wall, you saw the previous technique, which was essentially dabbing small amounts of paint in the cracks and letting it flow through. While that may be successful, it sure was taking a lot of time, so it occurred to me that maybe a different technique might be applicable. So what I've done, I'm going to show you the second technique that you might want to try. We're using the same solution that we did before. That is 1 part paint, 3 parts water, and some dishwashing liquid. The difference is how we're going to apply it. Instead of dabbing around the cracks, we are going to flood the area. Here we go. When we flood the area, because we have the dishwashing liquid in there, the paint will naturally run down into the cracks. Now, we will have some left on the surface, which we did in the other technique as well. And we're going to have to clean that off. We'll show you that later. One characteristic of this technique, of course, is it's much faster. But will it be better? Well, we're going to find out. So instead of, what, an hour to finish a section? 2 minutes? But faster does not necessarily mean better. So we will have to do some cleanup. After we do the cleanup, we will have an appearance more like this. And you can see the stones are much more prominent than the washed out, uncleaned up area that you see here. The stones are much more prominent. The cleanup is relatively simple. You take a cloth with some Windex and you rub it sometimes vigorously along the surface. And what you're trying to do is remove the paint that is sitting on top of the stones. The reason you can do that without affecting the paint that is on the stones, the gray paint to be exact, is because you put that clear coat on there. So rub vigorously. The clear coat is protecting the gray stone. What you're trying to do is remove the simulated mortar that so happens to be sitting on top of the stones. And you can see there's a huge difference between this before the cleanup and this appearance after the cleanup. And this appearance is what we're after. It seems like an extensive job. I did this whole section here, and it probably took me no longer than 10 minutes. Even if we had used the drop it in the cracks method, we would still have this situation. So the cleanup is going to be required no matter what. It seems to me that using what we'll call the flood method, where you simply flood the area with a simulated mortar, penetrates the cracks more evenly and it's sure a heck of a lot faster to do. We're going to continue with the cleanup, and I'll show you briefly how that is done so you get an idea of its simplicity. A short demonstration of how this cleanup is done. The products you will need are pretty simple. A small container with Windex and a cloth. The cloth that I'm using is an old t-shirt. Why Windex? Windex is a very good paint remover. In fact, in my case, and others do this as well, I use Windex as an airbrush cleaner. So it's going to do an effective job for us, and it's really simple. We will give you a demonstration of this. Dip some Windex in our cloth and just rub it on. You can do this pretty vigorously. And what you'll see from the cloth is you'll see that tan color, if you can see it. That is the paint that is being removed from the surface of the stones. And you just keep rubbing, and you have to do this all over. Every once in a while give it a wipe. And I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but already we're seeing some results. So we'll get some more Windex. And we just keep doing this until we get the result that we're looking for. I'll take as much of a close-up as I can, and you will notice the area that we just worked on for perhaps a minute or two already is showing the effects of the Windex. You'll notice it's darker than the surrounding area, and the reason for that is the Windex has removed the paint that was on the surface of the stones without affecting the stones themselves. We will continue to use this method along the sections of the wall that have not been completed, and we'll show you the result coming up. What you're seeing is the result of our cleanup. We've done as much cleanup as we intend to do. This will be the final appearance of our wall, and you're seeing it at more or less the same distance than you would see if you were standing right against the edge of the layout. Since it's way in the back, it's about almost 2 feet away from the front edge of the layout. For now, our stone wall is complete as much as we're going to do, and we'll have to be happy with that. Going back, you can see videos on our channel about how this thing was constructed. And thanks for watching this part of the series where we put in the stonework, painted it, and added the simulated mortar. And I hope you've enjoyed this series as much as we have enjoyed bringing it to you. And thanks for watching the Norfolk Southern Sherwood Subdivision.